Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Liquid Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Meisterheim. With me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, Taylor Page. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Karl.
Taylor, we have someone very exciting to be with us here today. So exciting, I even followed him on Twitter, and he even wrote his own intro. So I'm going to read it. You guys ready for this? All right. Let me introduce to you our guest, Matthew. By day, he's a mild-mannered IT enthusiast, husband, and a father of 3. But once the kids are asleep, he morphs into an AI-wielding, LCP-crushing, liquid-slinging developer behind the Shopify app Sections Pro. If you're hoping for the famous Doctor Who and the House of Dragons actor, brace yourself for disappointment. Please welcome Matthew Smith. Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I actually have not watched the last season of the Game of Thrones, The House of Dragons, right? So I don't know if Daemon Targaryen is still alive. Like, I hope he is. Like, I hope Matt Smith is still employed. But like, that's.
Dude, I'm totally in the dark on Game of Thrones. I know lots of people love it. I need to get in.
It's
on
been
this
erased
train.
from the collective conscience because they screwed the pooch so bad on the last season. Like, no one ever talks about it anymore. Stop it. Doesn't exist.
House of Dragons has lots of dragons, though, so I think that's why
Is
it's
it
like
good?
super popular. Yeah,
I couldn't
and
even
Matt
bring
Smith
myself
is
to
in
do
it,
it.
Who
so-
doesn't love dragons? Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, dragons fighting in the air.
Sheep.
It's pretty
Sheep
cool.
don't love dragons.
Sheep don't love dragons. That's a great point.
Anyways, Matt, we're super excited to chat with you today. We know who you are because we've been talking to you for a few minutes. I follow you on Twitter, as I mentioned before, so I know you extensively for the last couple minutes. But tell us, who are you? How'd you get started with Shopify development? What's your whole shtick? Let us in. Open the door.
So it's interesting. So I have a full-time job, so I work full-time. So this is kind of like my part-time gig. I do it for fun. Love Shopify stuff. I get involved with like the community as much as I can. But like I said, you'll kind of see me jump in and out of conversations because like I do have a job, got to support the family, right? So the so I started Shopify stuff around 2000. Built an app called Profit Pages. Complete failure. So if you probably never heard of it, it was really bad. But I kind of learned from that a little bit, and kind of one of the things that I think that's really important when you're developing for Shopify is kind of like seeing the wave and like trying to ride the wave. And so like I saw like when Sections, I think it was Sections 2.0, Sections Everywhere was announced. I started to take advantage of that, and I created this app called Sections AI. So we had like the Shopify wave, we had the AI wave, and I basically said, hey, I'm going to combine these two and allow you to build sections with AI. And it worked kind of. Like people would go in and type like, hey, I want a section that does this, and it produced a section. But sometimes it worked really awesome. Sometimes it was complete failure. So it was a lot of learning. But what I did find out was that like people really loved like when it did work, and I published those sections and I gave them away for free, and the people were like, hey, this is awesome. Like keep doing this, and then. So that app just kind of became Sections Pro. It was kind of more organic. Like I got rid of the AI piece because like no one liked the AI. It sometimes worked, it sometimes didn't. And I just started publishing sections. And so that's kind of like the base story of how I got started. Lots of failure, but we have an app that kind of works now. It's awesome.
It kind of works.
It's amazing.
Now. Like you're doing all right for yourself. Like you're doing pretty good there. So.
I mean, like I think the coolest thing was like when I typed in sections in the search bar and Sections Pro showed up. I was like, wait a second, like I don't think that happens for a lot of apps. So I think that's been the kind of the catalyst. It seems pretty awesome.
You must be making good money. You got AirPod Pro money at least, so it must have made success. Right?
Yeah, 2 jobs, 3 kids, a wife. Like it's it's I think everyone kind of goes through like that struggle with like trying to have a job and support your family, but whatever way you kind of do it. But
yeah,
I try to do try to have my full-time job and try to supplement it with the Shopify stuff.
Is your full-time gig is like related? Like you're a developer and your full-time
Wait,
gig
let's try to guess.
type thing,
Let's
or like
guess.
you're working you're like
Hold
a
on,
manager
hold
at KFC? Like what's like what kind of work are you doing?
Taylor,
otherwise,
what's your
you know
guess?
what I mean?
What do you think Matt does?
What's my guess?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back on because I'm pretty sure I don't have to guess. Like I feel like I've been I have not only just now followed Matt on Twitter. Like I've been following Matt for a long time. So, but honestly, actually, I don't think I do know offhand. So I'm gonna say like a systems analyst of some sort. I'm gonna throw something out there like random. Working with a lot of data.
Interesting. What do you think?
I was gonna say head of IT for Saturday Night Live.
Nice. That would be awesome. Actually, it'd be even better if I was like head of IT for like the St. Louis Cardinals. That would be better. But so shout out to the St. Louis Cardinals if you can get me a head of IT job. So what I do is I work in IT.
Oh,
I've had like 3 jobs in IT. So I did start as a developer, and then I was in usability for a long time. Like I drew pictures for a living, so I drew screens of like what applications should look like. That was an awesome job. I've done R&D, but now I'm kind of an architect in like this endpoint space. So we do like manage mobile devices and Windows devices and all kinds of stuff. So
That's cool.
quite a varied career of IT-ness, right? But it's
So
it's
more
been
in
awesome.
like the hardware space than the software, like probably.
Yeah, we do a
Okay.
combination, like hardware and software. Yeah.
Okay.
you said you've had 3 jobs in IT, but don't you really mean you've had 10 jobs in IT?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean,
One,
I've done so many.
0 jobs in IT.
Oh gosh.
Sorry,
Oh man.
too
Yeah.
soon. Okay,
I like it.
I warned you about Karl's humor before you popped on here. So
yeah, it doesn't exist.
But that's it. No, it's
So-
hilarious. It's great.
What first attracted you to Shopify? Like that job doesn't seem like it screams e-commerce to me.
Oh yeah, no e-commerce. It's completely unrelated. It's weird. So I built open source. I always coded in my spare time. Like it's just something I love to do. Don't know why. It's just like when I sit down on a couch and I have a computer, I just like can't sit there and just like look at memes. I got to do something else, and so like I write code. I think that's been something I've always done. I did done some open source projects. I had this probably about 20 years ago. I had this, or 10 maybe 10 15 years ago. I had an open source kind of like a website development tool that I built. Got somewhat popular.
Is that WordPress
And
you
then-
built?
Yeah, it's called WordPress. The other the Matt Mullenweg is his name or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, under fire right now, so I'm glad to be here.
Scoot right past that.
Yeah, so it wasn't successful, but it got like 1,000 stars on GitHub, which I was like, oh, this is awesome, 1,000 stars.
Wow, that's huge, man.
So I've always coded stuff. I just came across Shopify. Like I was just like, oh, this is cool. They have a API, and then I read the API, and I was like, this is a really good API. Like it's like easy to interact with, and that's how I got
Which
started.
one? The REST API
So this
or the
is-
GraphQL API?
The REST API.
Say it would have
yeah.
been rest, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was nice. Really
Karl
easy to
takes
interact
his
with.
quick jab at GraphQL.
Oh man. Yeah.
Well, you
Don't-
recently, I say I don't want to. So I really want to talk about theme blocks, like for this, but like
Yeah.
I would say like you did briefly try to like move everything over to like Remix, right? Like but you're like probably pulling back a little bit on that. So you're really good about like trying all the Shopify stuff, like as far as that goes, Shopify is like, hey, like this. What's your app now? Like what does the stack look like? Karl wanted to talk about that, so I'm gonna go ahead and make sure we get that in early enough.
Yeah, so my app is pretty old school. Like this guy publishes Koa. It's like a Node.js framework.
Yeah.
He had a Koa stack that he provided at one place like 2 years ago. Now Koa is deprecated, so I'm kind of looking to decided to move it right now. So my app right now runs on Koa, and on the front end it's just HTML and JavaScript. It's so simple.
Nice.
It's crazy simple. Like, and that's why it's really easy to hit LCP targets and stuff, is because it literally is an HTML page with CSS and JavaScript. Very simple. So that's where I'm at right now. I did try Remix. Remix is awesome. Like I love Remix. It was so easy to build code in it. But when I published it, I just missed all the LCP targets. Had a lot of people kind of reach out and say, "Hey, Matt, you need to do this. You need to do this." I tried all of it, and a lot of it seemed like hacks that would kind of take my app away from where I wanted it to go with it. So that was a challenge. Like I see a lot of like Shopify apps now. Like sometimes their dashboards aren't super dynamic, and I think part of that is probably like, "Hey, I'm trying to hit this LCP target, and if I do too much
Right.
of my dashboard."
Yeah, I know that's a lot of the pushback too, because most people, like when we're talking about LCP, like largest contentful paint, right? Like most people are most concerned about that right now because of built for Shopify, right? Like a lot of people, that's the biggest thing is we're trying to get built for Shopify. Like that's a big component of that, from like making sure we're hitting specific core web vital standards. And so I think that's the biggest reason, right? And so, but some of that pushback is, well, like the UX of that kind of goes down when we're trying to like gut everything just to hit this one metric. So we're speed's going up, but like the UX is going down, and it sounds like you've probably felt a little bit of the pain in that. Especially you have some UX experience too. Like drawing screens.
Yeah. I would like to have the homepage or the dashboard be the most dynamic piece of the application because that's where people come in. And so that's where Remix has kind of been an issue because I can't get the metrics high enough. And like the problem with LCP is like you can run it on your home machine, and I was getting like 0.5, 0.7 LCP. Yep. But then when you run your metrics across, like, hey, someone in India or China, or I don't think we're in China, but India or some of those areas, right? They'll come in and hit your application, and they'll get a 5 LCP, and it all has to do with like caching, right? There's, it's how your app is distributed. I'm a individual developer. I can't have an app sitting here and sitting in Europe as well. Like it'd just be too expensive to like dual locate an application. And so for me, the easiest way to do is have a very simple application that has very few requests that serves really well over the different countries, right? Yeah. And so that's where the challenge comes in. I don't really know how to fix it. I'm trying to determine that. I think like my next thing I'm going to look at is Cloudflare because they can distribute your app at the edge. But to do Cloudflare, like I don't think there's some blog articles on how to do it, but you have to have your database sit in the edge too, because your database can't be like a local database. So it adds a little bit of complexity on there. So that's what I'm gonna try next. So if anyone has experience with Cloudflare pages, hit me up and lead the way. But
if you're listening, Harshdeep, Matt needs your help. I know you know how to make Remix faster. But
yeah, I'm sure there's people out there. Go ahead.
It just occurred to me that there's another framework out there that you might not have tried that perhaps you would want to dabble with. Have you considered Rails?
I have this joke. I say like I do. The joke.
He starts with "I have this joke." Yes.
Like people ask me if I do something, I say like I will do anything as long as it's in JavaScript because that's the only language I know. Like I'm an expert in JavaScript.
Carl's like I'm doing whatever I can to avoid JavaScript.
We should talk because I'm sure you could teach me a lot.
Yeah, I love JavaScript. I've heard Ruby, Rails, all that's really good. I just never did it, so it's not JavaScript. So I don't touch it.
Wait, teach their own. It's okay to hate yourself. I understand.
After going through Remix, maybe I could spend a couple cycles trying to learn Ruby.
I'm a fan of Rails as well. So that's the way that I'm moving with things too. Yeah. So, but I am just like a front end dev trying to hack my way into app dev too. So I haven't touched Remix. So good for you for trying it, man. Like, but that's a bummer that you invested that time trying to like make that work and you just found too many negatives. So yeah, hopefully something like Cloudflare works for that. So, but Karl, do you have any other specific questions you want to ask about the app stack before we start transitioning more fully into theme blocks?
One more question. If you could you just let me have one question, Taylor? It's my podcast. Can I say one question?
I'm sorry.
So Matt, you mentioned you've got a full-time job, you've got 3 kids and a wife who presumably you interact with at some point. You also have a very successful app. How do you structure things and be so productive? Like, is it because, and I'm not making a joke here, is it because you work with a very simple stack like JavaScript that makes it productive? Like, it's easy, that's why you pick it? Is there other tricks that you have? I think we'd all like to know.
I think it's consistency. Like, I just do a little bit at a time every day and do it every day. And so that's kind of like how I'm able to develop stuff, right? I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not great at JavaScript. I'm not great at coding. I have to look stuff up. I use AI a lot to try to figure out stuff. But I'm in there every day, go into my code base, try to make it better every day, and then shut down. Having fast deployments, though, that's my recommendation. Like if you can deploy fast and consistently, then you just have to worry about code. So
that feedback cycle is like really quick when you can do that. So it makes a lot of sense.
What have you settled on? I know you're looking at Cloudflare, but for your fast deploys and current hosting situation, what have you settled on?
So I have DigitalOcean right now, DigitalOcean apps, and it's super easy. Like there's no server. I don't really know how it works. I like deploy my app, it grabs it from GitHub and does something, and it magically shows up. And so I love all the magic there because I don't think about it. It just goes there. I haven't had too many issues with it. I actually tried Render because I was like, hey, maybe Render's better than DigitalOcean. Yeah. Did the same thing. It was awesome. Like I think that's the way to go. Is like I'm sure there's people who love to mess with their stack, but I don't. I pay for the simplicity.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm recently been trying Fly.io, which is something that Shopify has even called out in their docs, and it's also very similar. But looking at all those, like, because I recently looked at these, like, part of my issue is being older. It's hard to constantly learn new things and switch stacks. So I'm trying to optimize. Like, I know these things I'm familiar with, like Rails, for example. I know how these things work. So if I can avoid having to learn some new layer of abstraction or some new paradigm, I try to. And so some of those I felt like, oh, I have to relearn, like how all this works under the hood so I can understand it. But some of them seem pretty straightforward and simple. So.
Yeah, I'm 45. I'm pretty old too for an app developer. So I guess I'm 44. Sorry.
I'm the young guy in the group. All right. This is I never felt so old until I posted some video, and then there's another guy at SDA. He's a really cool guy, Tax.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying his name right. But he's like, oh man, like I forget how young I am compared to some of these guys after watching your video. I was like, what does that mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm 36, man. Like,
we'll do like a Liquid
he's in
Weekly
his 20s,
Juniors
you
edition.
know.
It's fine.
He's what?
We'll do like a Liquid Weekly Juniors edition for you guys. It's fine.
Yeah, we do a Juniors edition.
Yeah, I mean, good for 36 is young, so good for you. Good for you on that. That's
well, thanks. You know, I did a lot. I had a lot to do with that. How young I am. So you know, just being born a little bit after y'all. So you know, that's.
Yeah, I just try new things. I'm just like I go out there and like, hey, this is something like Remix. I have no idea what this is. Go out there and try it. You kind of learn by doing. I think.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Yeah,
How old are your
huge
kids?
win for the consistency piece.
So I have a 12, a 9, and a 2.5.
Okay.
So
Wow, man, we're like the same person. You.
I was gonna say you two are so. I actually
Both
I feel
good
super
looking,
like
both
out
really
of place
talented.
here.
Kids are
And,
roughly the same age.
Need to throw in my specs here. I feel so out of the group now. Like you guys.
Well, I don't want to ask too much information on the doxing the internet, but we'll figure out ways to get together and hang out because we should be neighbors.
Are you guys in? You guys are in Ohio?
Yeah, so
Both
we're
of
It
both
would
in
appear
Ohio.
that way. Yeah.
Matt is Ohio born.
Yeah, Ohio born.
I just found that out today. I actually didn't realize you were even based out of St. Louis, like Kansas City, not Kansas City, that Missouri area.
Yeah,
and I was
St.
in
Louis.
Springfield, Missouri, so I was in the exact opposite corner of the state of you, but drove through there all the time to see family in Ohio. Now I'm in Ohio. We moved closer to family, but
No one
love
asked
the
you.
area. It's a nice area.
Yeah, good barbecue.
Great barbecue, yeah, for
What
sure.
part of Ohio are you from?
So I was just born in Ohio, and then my parents moved right away. So, but they're from Mentor, Ohio.
They're like, let's get
and
out of here.
Yeah, my dad was from Kirtland, and I was born in Willoughby. So,
Okay.
but
Thanks, man.
my dad was a salesman, so we were all over the place for a while, and then we landed in Missouri.
Nice.
Nice, yeah. I loved living in Missouri. It was great. We moved back just to be closer to family. My wife's family's all lives here, and so. But yeah, nice area for that. Karl, you got any other app questions?
Yeah, no,
or
Taylor, I
any
was
other
just about
really
to say-
personal questions for Matt that he can
what else?
try to like
I
sidestep
bet our
while we're recording?
SSNs are very similar to you. What's yours?
So yeah, I would love to talk to you about. We'll post in the comments and stuff. But originally, which was actually really funny, I actually had notes to talk to you like last year about some stuff you were doing with Shopify Flow. But you recently posted about doing some new stuff with theme blocks. So you have Sections Pro, which helps add sections directly to Shopify themes, and so you're talking about like now incorporating theme blocks, which is great. So Shopify just recently released these, and so I thought it would be really cool to talk about what you're doing because you've got the app space and then now like the theme space too that you're working in. You kind of got a foot in both worlds.
And
so
for those that
I
don't
know, if you
know,
want to talk about.
Could you tell us just an overview of theme blocks and what that new feature is? Just for folks who don't know.
He got it. I was leading up to it. This is Karl's way of saying like you're taking way too long to just get to the actual question. So yes, let's talk about theme blocks. What are they?
So, all right. So we start with sections, right? Sections are like those little, or like the blocks. Are you guys getting feedback from me? Because I'm hearing some feedback. All right.
No, Karl's typing. That might be what you're hearing.
Okay, good. So start with sections. You kind of stack sections to do a design, right? And that was kind of like the core way you build sections within, or build your theme within Shopify. And they did have blocks prior to theme blocks, right? So we had two types of blocks. We had what we call section define blocks, which is basically when you're building a section, you can define a set of blocks. Like say I'm building a slideshow, I could have images and videos and stuff, and those are my core sets of blocks. So that's kind of a section define blocks. And then you had app blocks where apps could publish blocks. They would go up in this magical Shopify cloud and go down to the stores, and it could distribute app functionality through these app blocks. Very cool. We could talk about that sometime too. I do a little bit of
Oh, for
do a
sure.
little couple things within app blocks. Within theme blocks, they're kind of like sections, but they're published to your theme. They're instead of in the sections folder, they're in the blocks folder. Um, but what's cool about them is you can like nest them, right? So
Hmm.
you can have themes, you can have sections, have blocks inside of sections, and then blocks inside of blocks. I think
Hmm.
it goes down to like seven blocks, maybe. I haven't
Yeah,
gotten that
it's
deep
eight
yet.
levels deep is what
Oh,
it
eight levels deep.
I believe is what
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. So yeah, if you're nesting, right? Yeah. So it would be like seven. Like
Almost like a
yeah, same thing.
silo of blocks.
yeah. There's 51.
Great show.
um, what was I talking about?
Got him. Yeah, we got him off track. So
Yeah,
we were talking about like the ability to like nest. So we're talking about the difference between the two, and so there's different kinds of blocks, right? And so we have these like so the section blocks, app blocks, and now we have these theme blocks, and
yep,
they're cool. They have different functionality. So what differentiates them between what we previously had
yeah.
accessible to us?
So what gets really excited is these become like independent things that you can move across your theme, right?
Mhm.
So like if I in the past, what I would have to do is like if I built like a section and I had images in it, I would build an image block within that section, distribute it. If I build another section with an image block within that section, well, now I can pull that image out and I can have it be its own independent thing, and I can distribute it to the entire theme, and it could be used anywhere. So it could be used within like a section that I said it could be used within, but if like you built your own section, you could also add that in there as well. So they become distributable. I think that's how, right?
Distributable. Yeah,
Distributable
that's a hard one.
and
Yeah.
reusable. So like I can reuse them across my entire site. There's some exceptions. We'll talk about the exceptions in a little bit, like where I think they need to get a little bit better.
Mhm.
But the thing that I got excited about wasn't that like, hey, we got blocks now because we had blocks.
Right.
It's that you have this nesting capability that gives you more of like this like page builder experience, like
Hmm.
built into Shopify, right? So like I can build like one of the things I have is like it's called a block builder, and you just stick it. It's a section that has nothing in it, and so you stick it on your page, and then you can stick blocks in it, and then as you stick blocks in it, you kind of start to build out your this brand new section that never existed before.
Hmm.
And like one of the blocks I have is a column, so you stick columns in, and then you stick like images and text and stuff under those, and you basically end up with kind of a page builder built into the theme customizer.
Hmm.
And so that gives you like I said, almost unlimited possibilities. Like I distribute like I think 13 blocks right now, and so you could have like a before and after uh, widget next to a video, next to a I think one of like a shoppable image type thing, and like
Hmm.
there's really no limit to what you can do with it. And what's also cool is interoperability. So like I could build it. I could build a block. Design packs could build a block. You could build a block, and those all could live right next to each other. So
Nice.
I think that's where it gets pretty exciting. Is like it's just not like it becomes like something that's open, that you can contribute to, and that you can have all these different types of blocks coming from all these different types of areas.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's a huge annoyance with the current blocks that we have. So we're going to call those section blocks, or I think I've seen them called static blocks. Even
yeah,
naming things is hard, and like especially stuff like progresses, like how we call them different things. So we're calling them section blocks, right? Like the
yeah,
the standard ones or whatever. Where if you make any kind of an update, but you would want like I could really use this specific block over in this section over here kind of type thing. You can't really
mhm,
do that without having to like go in and actually modify the code within that specific section versus the concept or idea of theme blocks is we're just building with blocks, right? So
yeah,
it's these sections as long as it supports that. And that might be kind of knocking on the door of talking about like some of the limitations. Because we can't have section blocks and theme blocks in the same section, right? That's how that works?
yeah. That's the biggest limitation right now,
Okay.
and the reason why it's a limitation isn't like, well, I don't exactly know the technical limitation behind it. Obviously,
Hmm.
there's some reason why they couldn't do it at the start. But really, where it affects most theme developers is that product information area, right? That's where
Hmm.
everyone wants stuff, right?
Yes,
You,
right.
you want to have your homepage look really nice, but then the next most important part, besides probably your homepage and maybe your collections, I would say the most important part of your site is your product information area, like where you sell your product. The buy
Hmm.
now buttons, the quantity selectors, all that. And a lot of people just want to be able to stick stuff there. So whether that's images or like tabs, like that's where, you know, where a lot of people want to like create new content.
Hmm.
And so like in my application, we have this like hack that basically you can take a section and like use JavaScript to move it up there. And so there's,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, a lot of people do it. So
JavaScript,
it's some,
Carl.
I'm not
but
saying it doesn't have its uses. I'm just saying.
yeah, it's funny because there's actually this new JavaScript spec coming out that's going to be super helpful. It's like a transport. I can't remember the name of the spec, but basically going to move the element like natively versus like I think today more of copies the element up to that area. So when that
Huh.
new JavaScript spec comes out, it might be really helpful for this. But um, where blocks stand, it'd be really nice to be able to put blocks. Like if I defined a block and put it up there. I think like a good example, like I think that you had from a previous podcast, I think maybe like when you guys were talking together, was you did this like you're talking about this quick buy use case, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So imagine like building a quick buy as a theme block. And then just you
hmm
could use it anywhere you want. So instead of just like, hey, I have quick buys and collections, like I could have a quick buy anywhere in my site, whenever it makes sense.
Yeah, that's really nice to have. Like that would be really, really nice to have.
So yeah, so it's like it takes that section paradigm a step further.
hmm
And like yeah, I think like the biggest like you said the biggest downsides right now is that you can't do it within section defined blocks. I think like once that piece is figured out, it's gonna be super powerful. And the other downside is the UX is a little bit like if you tried to use like multiple
hmm
blocks, like how you add a block, you can't really copy it from one sub block to another sub block. It's just
hmm
a little bit shaky. But Shopify is really good about like fixing UX over time. So I think like that's just
Sure.
gonna get figured out. So
Yeah. I kind of want to write an app around this now, just so I can use this new name I've got. It'd be New Kids on the Block for my app name. What do you guys think?
I love it. And KOTB, right?
Yeah.
You might be have a little legal trouble there with that one.
They're
Yeah.
not still around. It's fine.
Maybe if you spell it with a Z or something, does it
Yeah.
different? Like maybe it's like it's not the same.
Is a hanging
Kids.
tough? Was that like the hanging
Yeah.
tough?
I
I'm
can
not gonna
sing
sing
it
it
for you
for
if
you.
you want to. Yeah. Taylor's like, ooh,
I would love for you to sing it, Carl. This is
It
great.
still slaps, Taylor. See, you gotta use his language, Matt, because he
Oh my
doesn't
God.
pick up.
I don't. No, that's still younger than me yet. I still have to have my nieces and nephews translate stuff for me when I'm around them. So I'm that age. I don't know. That happened sometime around 33 or something, I think, or whatever, where they start talking about stuff. And I'm like, I don't. What does that mean? Like I'm sitting over here trying to like really like nonchalantly like Google stuff. Be like, what is this? Are they trash talking me right now? What's
Yeah, kids are the
happening?
worst. Yeah.
Yeah, my kid's the same thing. The 12-year-old, he always says new words. I have no idea what they mean. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, my daughter is 8, so I'm not quite there yet. She hasn't brought home too much new lingo that I don't know what's happening. So,
Yeah.
well, so and I don't know so we're talking about like theme blocks. And I don't know if you want to dig into more of like limitation stuff like that. I think so. I haven't personally like moved over. I work in themes like very regularly. Work with merchants directly, and so I haven't actually like moved over and started incorporating a lot of the theme blocks because I think it's a real paradigm shift. And
Yeah.
even while like researching a little bit for this episode, like talking about that, looking up the docs and stuff like that, I think a mental kind of model shift for me that was kind of helpful was almost this comparison to like theme blocks as like snippets to some degree that are reusable directly.
Yeah.
And then another thing that was really helpful for me, I actually took a look at Max Stober made a commit on the Dawn theme that included some theme blocks. And so looking through how they kind of structured that, kind of this componentized structure and stuff like this really helped. I don't know if you have any good like mental models or like if you want to talk about like how you think about theme blocks when you're trying to figure out how to build them out for sections and stuff.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like the theme perspective is a little bit different from where I come from, right? So I'm trying to create things that sell. And I'm not really. I
hmm
don't think I've sold a block yet. So like I'm really hoping that eventually I do sell a block. So I'm not
hmm
sure if they're going to take or not. I mean, it's like Sections Pro. People come look for sections. They're like, what are
Well,
these block
and I
things? Who
wonder if,
cares?
yeah, so I wonder
Yeah.
if it is just because it is. Do you think it's because it's such a mental model shift? Like sections are pretty easy to understand, and even how we had blocks, but even because they call
Yeah.
them theme blocks, I don't know. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think people come to like apps like mine with a problem and they're just like, hey, I
hmm
need this. Or like, there's probably like people who are working for other people and they're just like, hey, this person's asked me to add like a slideshow. How am I going to add a slideshow? Like, I
hmm
don't know if they actually care about like the big picture all the time. Like they're very focused in on like, this is the one thing I want to do.
Right.
Apps like mine are meant to kind of like supplement themes. Like themes do lots of awesome things, but like
Yes.
they're not going to cover every single use case. And they're especially not going to cover that use case where your like boss is like, hey, we need to sell more on this page. Like we need to stick an image, like a video right here. Let's have
Mm-hmm.
five videos right here. And like, oh, my theme doesn't support that. Let's go try to figure out how to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the use case for my app. So it's a little bit different from a theme developer. If I was a theme developer, I would look at it from the standpoint of reusability, right? I don't want to
Yes.
do the same thing over and over and over again. Like a
Mm-hmm.
block allows me to like leverage a single piece of code that I can use all over the place. It reduces uh, developer risk around errors. That's how I would look at it. Um, for me, what I'm trying to do is kind of try to sell a new paradigm, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to come out and say like, hey guys, like you can build themes, but hey, if you or you can build you can pick some of my sections, right? But if you want to like build your own things, if you want to get creative, like this is like the where the blocks come in. You can like move
Mm-hmm.
them around to make them creative. Like so in my app we have like two these things called builders, and like there's like a page builder, and there's a tab builder, and it basically you can like stack all these things to like make a page. Like you can stack columns and like, but they were like one dimensional. Like you could have a column block, and then like underneath the
Right.
column block you could have like, and it would allow you to kind of map to like a page builder use case. And some people liked it. Some people got it. Some people didn't get it. But that's really what I'm trying to build is like a new paradigm around like, hey, you can use this app to be creative and kind of act as a page builder. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I,
page builder that
I don't
doesn't have all the bad stuff about a page builder. Like, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I started building page builders, and like my first app was a page builder. And it's funny when I built a website I have two clients. I built two client websites. So I've actually built Shopify websites, which is which was weird because I built apps before websites. But anyway, so I built this client website. I didn't use my app at all. I was like, why am I not using my app? And I was like, well, sections are so much better than having to use a page builder for most of the stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and,
Right.
and so that's why I ended up like getting in the section space was like, I just like if you build an app, you don't use your app when you have the opportunity to use your app, something's wrong with your app. That's my
Mm-hmm.
my son, and that's probably why it failed, right?
Yeah,
Um,
if you kind of get to the point where you're like, like I actually don't need this, or it's just harder to find like the specific use case, But yeah, I'm with you
yeah.
as far as like themes do a lot of amazing things. I think it's really neat, like your app, how like they kind of extend existing themes. So like
Mhm.
that's usually what I'll do with people who even want like custom development on a theme. It's like one of those, if your budget isn't quite right to pay a developer, it's like just grab one of these themes, these apps that extend your existing theme rather than doing a whole new theme or hiring somebody else. Like this, that's a good use case for it. Um,
Yeah.
so when you're building out, so that's probably the way that you would then describe it as when you're trying to figure out, hey, like when I'm building these sections, and like when I'm going to build a theme block versus like I'm going to build a section that has more section blocks and stuff like that. It's
Mhm.
more about like when you are kind of like leaning more towards like the versatility of it. If so, somebody who probably is more interested in like the composability here of like being able to move stuff around would be where you choose between the two.
Exactly. Yeah. If I'm a theme developer, I'm looking at it completely different. Like I'm looking at it as like, how can I reuse code? If I'm
Hmm.
a sections developer or whatever I am, right? I'm looking at how can I sell stuff, right? What are
Right.
people going to buy, right? And so like I'll build a lot of sections because people buy sections.
Hmm.
But I think there's going to be a paradigm shift at some point where people start using blocks and like they're just going to be like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe I need to go find a block. And I think that paradigm shift is probably going to happen when Shopify allows I would say I'm hopeful, right? That they allow theme blocks and section defined blocks to live together.
Yeah.
Because then I could just go, hey, you want to add this, video or this, this set of videos into your product section. That's when it would be possible. So,
Yeah, I think that
um,
was some of the initial pushback too from theme devs when they were starting to talk about like online store 3.0, right? Like with like
yeah,
theme blocks and then like the design style layout. Like that was some of the pushback initially was from existing theme devs, at least from what I saw, because of the concern for that of like other people saying like, oh, this supports 3.0 because it supports theme blocks, but then they're like, people are going to be upset that their theme doesn't support this and they're going to want like a different theme that does. It makes it sound like the same as vintage, but I say that, but like I work on plenty of shops still that they're rocking a vintage theme. They're not even on Online Store 2.0 yet. So it's like
yeah,
it's just one of those things. Like it takes forever for some people to upgrade, and the reasons for that are different for everybody.
yeah. They care about making sales, and like I said, I work with two stores, and like I mean, like their model around apps is a little bit different. Like they're just looking for
Hmm.
solutions, right? They go out and say, I have a
Yes.
problem. like this app provides that solution. That's kind of, if you want to build a new app, like you have to start with a problem. There's not, that's how you're going to be successful. So
Yeah, that's a really good thought. Talking about theme blocks, and Matt's doing a little course here on how to go about actually building an app that sells.
oh man, yeah, I wish I was better at that, but yeah.
Yeah. Stinks. I was going to ask Taylor, I don't know if this is a helpful conversation to have or not, so feel free to cut it off. But, obviously Matt's got this app. New Kids on? No, it's whatever you call it. And
NKOTB.
That's right.
I'm going to rename it today just for fun. See how far I dropped out of the rankings.
And it's not necessarily directly... I guess that one is more. But imagine a scenario where that doesn't necessarily market very well to a merchant, right? But then, Taylor, you're working on behest of a merchant or an agency or whatever, doing some work. You're like, it'd be really useful to use this app. How do you have that conversation with your client around bringing in the subscription overhead for an app, and or how does an app developer structure their pricing in such a way that makes it more appealing and more accessible to be combined with what a consultant's doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask this because I have a lot of flexibility in my pricing, right? Like I do a subscription, and then I also have pay as you go. So like if you want a block or a section, you can pay I think it's $15. It's super cheap, right? You can grab a section, use it, and that's it. You can pay me $15, keep the app installed, and it always works for the most part. There's some issues around upgrading right now, but that's something I can't really control. But yeah, so like the way that I look at it is like you could have like a long-term commitment, like, hey, I'm going to use this app as part of the way I manage my store, and so like then it makes sense to have a subscription. But I also I have 50 free sections in my app, and that's kind of where how the app kind of became popular. So I'm kind of committed to like keeping free stuff, even though I think it hurts my bottom line. It's like, you can come and use my app, and a lot of people don't use anything paid, and they, love the app. And then I have people who come in and they'll buy a couple things. And I have people who subscribe. So like, I think like if I was, having that conversation, you have to see that added value that you're paying for every month. And so with an app like mine, you probably aren't going to see added value out of sections every single month. I mean, maybe, if they kind of help towards selling, right? So I think subscriptions are really hard to sell in that case unless you're using it all the time. And so that's why we have the pay-as-you-go model. Like, super simple, $15. I mean, like you can't hire a developer for $15, right? It's like
not even close, right?
You can't hire me for $15. I'll tell you that.
Well, darn! Like that was the next question. Yeah, at least what I'm talking to clients too about, like, I don't know, like it probably depends on the developer and how they work with people, and for the most part, like what I will typically do is I explain like the two different ways to go about it, right? Like it's like, hey, we can do this with custom dev, or we can do this with an app, and then there are some times where there's just some things where you just can't do it with like custom dev if it's like front end stuff, right, or whatever. Like discount code stuff is like a really good example of that. We can't just write stuff that just like gives you free discount codes without doing something on the back end. So like we need to reach for an app to help out somewhere for this. And so usually like the cost value, the factor starts to come into play based on Matt, like you were talking about. Like it's more about like most people when they're looking for an app, you're just trying to solve a specific problem. So the cost of your app can't be like so much so that it's like painful for them to solve that problem and pay for that each month, right? Especially when they're already paying a developer like me. We're paying you already to do the dev, and now you need to buy like you're buying this tool, right, to fix this problem or whatever. So that's one of those things. I think there's a couple of them that are just like even like back end only type apps that I end up recommending, and all you got to do is like have them use it a couple of times and then they're sold. But the other thing that I think people it benefits well, and I don't know if your app does this necessarily, whatever, and how you would even go about that. But apps that tie or showcase some form of ROI, right? Like those always do well. I have a lot of issues with some of them. Like I've got one that I will not drop names, but it's like
good. It's
this collections, like A/B testing, whatever kind of type thing. And like they've got like just as soon as you get in the dashboards, like you've made this much money off of our collections, and I'm like, that's just okay. Attribution is hard. So I feel like I was going off about this earlier, so I'm not going to get on that soapbox. But Like if you just have some way that you can kind of indicate like, hey, like this is helping you make money, I think that's great. I think some people get a little crazy with what they try to grab as far as like, hey, this is how much money you've made in some instances. But I think if you can somehow showcase the value there, it's not just about, hey, like, you know, we added this section or whatever. Like even when I build stuff, it's hard. If I build something custom, I'm like, did this work or not? So trying to figure out some signals or whatever that it's actually solving the problem that they were trying to fix. So
yeah, if I ever built an app again, I definitely would tie it to like ROI. I mean, like it's one of those things like if you can get in the payment flow, so whether that's bundles or like you said collections or whatever, and you can kind of track that all the way through, that's where you're going to see the most return on an app. Unfortunately, a lot of those areas are super crowded, right? So like, you know, bundles is like an area where I think there's a couple clear winners. I think you mentioned one of them, right? And so that's a hard area to get into. I'm always kind of keeping my eye out on like those types of apps, like those type of opportunities. So
yeah, I think one of the cool spaces that people are doing right now is a lot of partnerships and integrations. Like I don't know if you've messed around too much with that, but you know, like you just mentioned, like some of these bundling apps that are really, really successful, like having an integration where it's like, oh, we work with this bundle app, like, and you've got you know that like that's totally cool having those partnerships and integrations, and so I think that's a good way to kind of like maybe expand some of the existing that you could potentially look at, because again, like for those bundlers, it is wild. Like we were talking about that in the last episode that just came out. We have like 5 different types of bundlers on this one shop that I'm working on, and I swear to you, like it like makes me laugh every time they're like, hey, like this is what we want it to look like, and I'm like, that's a brand new bundler. Like we already have 3 of these. Like why am I building another one? But I do have to like build a brand new one. You know, it's not like we can you know, we can reuse bits and pieces of stuff, but like it's not, you know, so having stuff like that, I think it's wild, all the different layouts that you can get into for stuff. So that could be a thing to do.
Like a bundle.
Bundler
bundles.
Yeah, you stick around a lot and you get a lot of good ideas. Like I think I get a new good app idea every month. Like I had someone reach out to me and say, hey, have you thought about this? I'm like, you know, that's awesome. I need to build an app for that. I have a couple apps in my head that I've been thinking about too, that like, you know, how to kind of do that, tie stuff to ROI. But it's hard enough just to have a single app and deal with like the support and stuff with that. Man. And then like to come up with a new app and like kind of go back through the whole, hey, I gotta like grow this app again, right?
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Axel in Shop Dev Alliance, like running 5 different apps as a solo dev, and I'm like, how are you doing that? That's wild. Like, you know. Yeah. But some people, are crushing that. But I can't imagine even doing one. But you also like you're working a full-time job, and then you are also running an app. So, you know, there's an argument, like, right? If you went all in or whatever, that could be a thing. So,
and Matt, you mentioned support just a moment ago. I was curious to ask you, like, how do you handle support? And do you find having an app that's very theme integrated, do you think it causes you to have more support issues than an app that maybe was a little more set apart?
You're hitting on a hot topic, right? I was talking about this earlier today. So like the all of how support works, and so my app, I try to limit support as much as possible because it's not something I want to do every single day. And so how I would do that is like I have videos all along the path. So once you install an application or once you install a section, a video pops up and says this is how you work with it. I think there's when I introduce like this new type of product block type thing, there's a video that shows up on that. So I have a lot of videos that kind of walk people through that. I usually get about like 1 support question a night, and they usually come overnight for some reason. I don't know why. I like wake up and they show up in my inbox. So I don't get a ton of support. But like kind of go into what I was talking about earlier, like to me that's a hot topic because I think a lot of apps like farm support, like they force store owners to kind of go through the support process to get something simple done. And it's very frustrating to me because like if you look at my app, like it's a good app, like it's been around for a while. I have 36 reviews, but that's because I don't go out. Like every time I do a support call for someone, I'm like, hey, can you review this app? And so I think like if you look at my app, it's kind of like a very organic, like, you know, I'm trying proactively to like not to help the customer when they're in the app, trying proactively like to, you know, get reviews, but I'm not like forcing them through a review flow to make that work. So that's a hot topic for me. I don't want to go too deep into that, but I call it review farming. It's like this idea that you intentionally make your app bad so you can get reviews.
There's some. They create easy fixes in the onboarding flow essentially that they can get a quick win kind of type thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that people have a lackluster experience so that when they get help, they're more motivated to write a good review? Is that what you're saying?
I don't see that many. So, I, how the reviews work in Shopify, I don't see a ton of bad reviews, right? So, like, unless someone's really mad, like you had a really bad experience, they'll jump on and give you a bad review. Most reviews come out of a support experience, and most of those support
Mm.
experiences you aim for it to be positive, right? And you're fixing a problem, you're fixing something that they had an issue with. So, like, typically those reviews are going to be pretty good. Um, and no problem with like that process. Like, I think like that's how it should work. But I do think that there's apps that intentionally like use dark patterns, right? Like they do things that cause you to have to talk to support. I think that's where I kind of like draw the line.
Mm.
I get me, like I said, for a full-time job, I don't want people contact me at all. Like I
Yeah.
want my app to be super easy to use. I don't want people like, hey, if someone contacts me, there's actually a problem. Like my app either has a bug or they just can't figure something out. Like, or I've done a horrible job providing videos to make that useful. Um, so that's my 2 cents. Like I think apps should aim to not have support, and that's where there should be some benefit. Like, hey, this app is good because we don't have to. You don't need support for it. It makes sense. It's
Yeah,
intuitive.
it is hard, and I think it's one of those things too, where so the benefit of that, and anytime you can humanize a process, and like so if you have like that customer support reach out, like that
Mhm.
app now has a name, right, a face to the name, even if you don't end up like even if it's just chat support or whatever, but like it
Yeah,
humanizes the process a little bit. I don't think people are very motivated to leave reviews if like the app works exactly how it's supposed to work, right?
yeah,
Like no speed bumps or whatever. Like it does what it says it's going to do. Cool. That's why I downloaded it. That's why I paid for it. Why am I like the merchant is
yeah,
in no way incentivized to leave a review. But when you introduce the customer support element in some way, whether that's engineered by design or like it just so happens kind of type thing, you have that touch point where it humanizes the process enough to like we just naturally want to help people, especially if like US based culture, everybody loves the underdog. So if
Mhm.
you get to the point where you're working and you're like, oh, you're a solo app dev and like you're rocking this, like yeah, I'm gonna leave you a review, man. Like absolutely. So I do
Yeah,
get like that's the pain point. Recently ran into this even on a Shopify situation with an app that I recommend. We've talked about. Tried to get the Plus shop to leave a review, and they couldn't leave a review, and it's because of like all these reasons. And like we checked all of them off, like it was none of these reasons. So the review process is even kind of broken on Shopify's side
yeah,
to some degree, and that's been a complaint for a while too. So it's a hard problem to solve. Reviews are not. Because like the way that I read reviews is not the same the way that Karl reads reviews. Like I love bad reviews as a person reading reviews
yeah,
because they tell me so much more than any positive review. Every positive review is just like, oh, this is
It
great. It's
is.
just like, okay, whatever. You
I
know.
feel like they just tell you about the psyche of the person that wrote the review. Like, you clearly have some issues.
Well,
Give a
yeah,
1-star review because
if you read a bad review, like it tells you everything you need to know. Because if you read all the bad reviews and they're stupid reasons, right? It's just like, well, this didn't work because of blah 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 blah. I'm like, well, you're an idiot. I don't agree with you. But now I'm all of a sudden like I'm rooting for this app and like I'm gonna get this thing downloaded, man. Like I'm gonna use this thing and prove this 1-star guy wrong. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah,
just it's one of those things. That's how I look at reviews, but I know that's face value. That's not how all merchants look at reviews either. So if you're out there listening to this podcast and you're an app dev, don't cater how you do reviews to how I view them. Try to figure out how merchants look at reviews.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I said, this is something I can talk about for hours. This very frustrating part of like being an app dev is like how it
Hmm.
works. I think Shopify has like they're not very transparent about how they rank applications, but my app still ranks fairly well, and like I only have 36 reviews, right? So like
So somebody at
it's
Shopify
not.
likes you at least then, if that's the case, right? That's
I
we like
hope
Matt.
so.
He's cool.
I hope so. Yeah, I have no idea. Like so that's one of the things I think is it's probably good that we don't really understand the rankings 100%. But like, there's definitely a there's we know review count does have some effect at some level.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it's a hard one. But well, appreciate all the insight though on theme blocks, and then also working with an app and supporting that in that fashion. You are built for Shopify. Do you
Yeah.
think your tech stack helps you get built for Shopify?
um, so that's a good question. I would much rather be on Remix. I'm very worried they're going to do a whole nother round of reviews.
Hmm.
Shopify app reviews this year. They've talked about it a lot. Haven't seen it come up yet. So I have all the check boxes in the admin center. It all matches exactly how they want to do it. But like, I really want like, I always felt like if I was on Remix, if I was on the platform that they told me to be on, it'd be a lot easier. And so that was my goal
Hmm.
to get. That's why I wanted to move to Remix, but haven't got there yet. So,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
um,
So you're gonna give
but
it
yeah,
another go, just not right now.
I think so. Like I still have, I basically have two apps that I'm maintaining right now. I have my Remix app and I have my app that's published, and I'm constantly building on it. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely want that to work at some point. I'm hoping that they at some point LCP kind of like they pull off it a little bit and maybe
Hmm.
like make the number a little bit higher. Because if it's like 3, it'd be really easy to hit. Like 2.5 is, for some reason, that number is just like a magic number that's hard to hit. So like,
Yeah.
I think there's, I'm hoping that maybe they pull back a little bit on that. But like, um, yeah, I'm still going for it. Like I don't give up. I'm gonna keep trying. Like I really, like I said, I really want my app to be 100% in line with what Shopify's vision is for their ecosystem. So
That's awesome.
just not there yet.
Was there
Not
anything
Rails.
about? Yeah.
I was gonna say, even if it's not Rails.
Okay, guys.
Salt on the open wound.
So I'm probably going off on a tangent, so you can stop me. But there was some talk that Shopify said something around like, "Hey, we're going to make Polaris a little bit more cross compatible." I can't remember who said that, but I don't know if that means
Hmm.
web components or having a Rails version of Polaris or having a non-React version of Polaris. So like
Well,
Components,
that would be
Polaris
super
would be really
exciting.
interesting. Yeah, that'd be
That would
There
be
is
awesome.
one.
cool.
So there's a guy, he's
Polaris
an
View
SDA,
components.
Karl. He took
Yeah,
Polaris and made a Vue Components version of it and made it available as a gem for Rails apps to consume. So
yeah, yeah. I think it's not like he's probably copying the styles over and some of the HTML and stuff. Um, Yeah, I think like a standard Shopify offering that was
oh,
more
okay.
cross-platform would be awesome.
I say
Um,
it's not like web it's not web component compatible, is it, Carl?
I'm
Like
not going to
it's
show my ignorance for everyone to see.
yeah,
I don't
Polaris
know.
View Components works. Yeah, it works great for like a Rails app, but that was the idea. It would be great if Polaris was like based in something like Vue Components or Web Components instead.
Let me call Karl real quick.
That'd be really
oh,
cool.
yeah. So maybe if that happens, then it's going to be super easy to have your app be. You could use any underlying platform. I think right now you have to have React to use Polaris, and it's like,
Hmm.
its main form. So if you're doing a Rails and then you have React on top of Rails, I,
You must hate
you can do it
yourself.
that way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be very challenging. I think like turbo links is like the hot thing in Rails, right? Something like
Hotwire, yeah.
Hmm.
It's all that
Hotwire,
sort
yeah,
of mixed together.
yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about
Right
it,
So
what
there.
I'm talking about.
so if that happened, I probably would ditch React Remix. To be honest, like I'm not like a huge React Remix type person, but my goal is to be there just because that's where Shopify was.
Yeah.
Um, but if they said, hey, we're going to do a web component version of it, I'm like, awesome, I will do that instead.
Yep. Right.
I go where they tell us.
Hmm.
And I know I toss a lot of shade about Rails and everything in JavaScript, but honestly, I do really think the best tool for whatever job and whatever problem you're trying to solve makes the most sense. And so it's a
100%.
constant juggling act, right? Especially in your work with a vendor like Shopify, you're trying to figure out, like you said, Matt, read the tea leaves. Where are they going? Because I'll go a whole hog into React if that's what we're going to be doing for the next 10 years and if that's where all the support's going to be. But if you see the history, you're like, well, they actually change fairly often. And so I don't know, is it worth is it worth getting
They
so invested in this, right?
Yeah.
They do. I mean, they've gone from nothing, right? They had no UI framework. Then they had like a React, like Polaris React, and then that's changed a couple times, and now they have Remix, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I said,
That's
just
a young man's game, Taylor, keeping up with all that. Matt and I, we just gotta, put in a cruise control and do the best we can.
That's-
So
yeah,
Yeah, no, I feel the concern. I personally, my own jaded opinions about Remix is more. I haven't been like super impressed with a lot of the apps built by Remix, and so like that was one of the reasons why I started to lean like into Rails. And someone explained to me it's just because like Rails has been around for long enough that it makes sense because to me it's like, oh, like this works exactly how I think it should. Oh, this is a Rails app. And so that's because like Rails has been around for long enough. Like that's how like you're used to using the web in a lot of instances. And so I don't know if it's just that experience for me that I've seen that. There's just been a lot of things with Remix and I'm like, ooh, I know they just moved to Remix and now it doesn't work quite how I would want it to work. Like this there's some weird oddities here, So I'm not educated enough to like actually have a good opinion about that. So I don't have the experience. So I'll continue to wait for smarter people like y'all to tell me what I should be doing.
You should just have a panel, like a throwdown, where you have like a Rails developer, Remix developer, and just have them go at it.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no opinion. I just try to keep my app running every day. That's the
that's the goal.
To keep it going.
Yeah.
That's all.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just take a moment here just to recognize Prakar. Prakar, if you're still listening to this podcast, those of you that don't know, Liquid Weekly is a Shopify podcast, but also it's Prakar's personal workout podcast. So you hit 136 heart rate last time. Let's see if we can get that up, maybe 5%. So let's go for 140, 141. You got it, man. Hang in there. We're almost through this. All right.
No, we're going to transition the changelog and bring it way down? Is that what you're doing? So, I don't know if anything else that you want to throw out there, Matt, before we transition kind of the next segment on like theme blocks or anything like that.
No, just a thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which one of us do you like the best?
Give us some information.
What's that?
Which one of us do you like the best? Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm a longtime follower, so I feel like I get to edge out here a little bit. But I'm gonna, before Matt can correct me, I'm gonna change over to the changelog. So in the dev changelog, real quick, some quick little examples here of some stuff that came out. So effective, actually yesterday there were some updates to continuous cart authentication. So enabling folks to be able to stay logged in for their checkout experiences, which is kind of neat. So apps can kind of just append a necessary token here for that to happen. So definitely check that out. There's also a resource guide for a checkout sheet kit for building mobile apps. I thought that was interesting. So that's more like the headless space, which is why I know nothing about it at all when it comes to that part in Shopify. So I thought that was really interesting. But it was one of those things, like it's an improvement before, because previously opening the authenticated checkout was only possible using multi-pass, limited to Shopify Plus plans and legacy customer accounts. So now this works for all plans and customer account versions as well. So folks that are building in logged in checkout experiences for customers, that is going to be super helpful. New change that went into effect also as of yesterday, action required. So these are the important ones I'm trying to make sure that we hit, was the new buyer consent requirement. So Shopify made some waves not too long ago, and it wasn't even Shopify. There were a couple people posting online about these new requirements where a Shopify app cannot increase the value of the cart without buyer consent. So you'd see this a lot on a bunch of different apps that did things like shipping insurance or something like that, where someone would just hit checkout and this thing would just be there automatically, right? And they're like, what the heck is this? And they have to back out and like remove it if they didn't want it or whatever. And so people were all in an uproar about this. Kind of silly. I think it's a good change, whatever. And so Shopify didn't actually roll this out other than contacting apps that were currently known to be doing this. And then they also updated App Store requirements where they could not do that sometime a couple of months ago. But now in the changelog, it is an actual announcement where it is a requirement. So you cannot increase the cart cost without explicit buyer consent. So that whole, agree to this or whatever kind of type thing. So good change, I think, on Shopify's end. There you go. Last one, real quick. So some performance integration and category-specific requirements are coming into practice to ensure built for Shopify. So Matt should be interested in this, being somebody who's very intrigued by all of the built for Shopify standards and staying on top of that mess. So check that out in the changelog. We'll have that linked up. But Built for Shopify annual review, it says, will be on January 2nd, 2025. So reviewing performance requirements and that stuff all rolling out here. Integration requirements, things are definitely starting to get enforced. And they're doing more category-specific guidelines as well now. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to make note of that or confirm for me. So before, Built for Shopify was just hey, here's a series of standards or whatever. It was just kind of for all apps, and now that we're moving to this category-specific requirements, did that change anything for you as far as the things that you had to hit, or was it all pretty similar?
I mean, I hope not. I did read through that, but not. I didn't see my category specifically, so I was hopefully not. But
okay, good.
I'm always nervous about the reviews.
I know, yeah, right. Oh no. Well, it's like anything else. It's like you're driving in a police officer pulls up behind you, even if you're going the speed limit and your hands are at 10 and 2, you got your seatbelt on and all this other stuff, whatever, you're still like, oh gosh, like somebody's watching me do this now. You know?
Exactly.
So totally get it. But there you go. That's the change log. A couple of important things. We'll have that rigged up in show notes. And Matt's still safe. I'm looking at his theme listing right now for Built for Shopify. So I mean, ready to rock.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Such a helpful thing you do there. I know you love it. So it's a win-win.
Love it.
We're now to the third half of our show, where we talk about our pick of the week. I've got so many ideas myself, and Matt, you said you've come prepared, so I will go first since Taylor just talked.
Thank you.
My pick of the week, I had so many, but I'm going to narrow it down to one. Music Go Round. This is a chain of stores all across the U.S. There's not a ton of them, but they're scattered about, and there's a couple here in Ohio, and it's a used music instrument store. They have everything: guitars, keyboards, drums, school instruments, all that kind of stuff. But the local one here in particular has just been so supportive of my family, and just really wanted to appreciate them because I've been bringing my kids in there ever since they were little, just to get hands on instruments. I'm very careful, like I'm right there hovering, right, so they don't damage anything. But since some of the stuff's pretty cheap, it's okay. But then even more recently, my son's become much more interested in building instruments, and so he's been able to go and show the staff, and they're very supportive of him and helpful. Even give him some like free strings for some of the like cigar box guitar stuff he's trying to do, stuff like that. So if you've got one in your area, obviously it probably depends on the store management, but check it out. They're a good group of people, and it's a great way to introduce your kids to music in a low-key way.
That's really cool. So he's building guitars?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's 12? How old is he?
11.
Man, my kids just play video games.
I was going to say, I wasn't building anything like that when I was 11. Like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
All right.
Matt, what have you got? Let's drop your picks, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to go old school, over-the-air broadcasts, right? So, like, I don't know if you guys have been following, like, the price of streaming has become so expensive. Like, I just dropped, I do TV for, like, a year and a half, just dropped it. It's getting to be, like, $85 a month or something like that. So I dropped that, and I've gone to this kind of modern over-the-air. So I get an antenna hooked up to an HD home run,
Nice.
streams it across my house. So I got, like football, can watch football and all the local channels. Still have streaming. Like I was gonna go silent, but you guys stole it. So like, yeah, I still do streaming, but like this helps kind of control the costs of like the the ever growing expense of home entertainment. So
Well, at least you try, right? Unless one of your kids signs up for it, like, without you knowing about it.
my
Like,
gosh. Yeah, we have Netflix this month again because my daughter signed up for Netflix again. I was like, oh, there's new stuff on Netflix. I'll just watch it. And so I kept it this month. But like, yeah, it's dark patterns, man. They get
that's
you.
right. Like, there's no reason a kid should be able to figure that out, man. Like, that's that's awesome.
Yeah, she just hit the buttons. Oh, Netflix, we're back. $15. So
Drat. That's awesome. I haven't done the over the air stuff in a long time. So that's still like you get actual football games on and stuff too. Like,
yeah, so you get the main channel. So like if you have Sling, for example, you don't get local channels. Sling's kind of like the cheapest way to get ESPN if you're into sports, right? So like if you have that, then you have to have a way to get the other channels. So like basically you hook it up, and like what's cool about the HD home run is like it will stream across your entire house. And so like I had it streaming, and I have a Plex server set up in my I'm in the basement, right? So I'm playing over to the basement. A Plex server set up in the basement, and that does recording, so I can record stuff. And so you get pretty much anything that's on Fox, CBS, NBC, which is a lot of stuff.
yeah.
And then you can supplement. So I'll do Sling during some ports, like when we're going to do like the NCAA tournament or something. Like I just want to watch that. We'll do Sling for that. So just kind of a way to control costs instead of having like I think YouTube TV went up to like 85 something bucks a month, which is like
85. So the trick to that is if you've got family that you can have a Google Family account with, like you split the bill with them. So that's like my brother-in-law and I, like we split the cost of it. So it's still some version of affordable, but it is like it's wild how much it's going up. It's like it's almost cheaper to get cable at this point, So like, woof.
Yeah.
I only do it for football season, so maybe I'll have to try the over-the-air thing if I can still watch some football.
Yeah, my kids watch. My daughter watches Disney. That's all she watches, the Disney stuff. And so we have that. And then my kids just watch YouTube. And so I'm like, we're paying $85 a month so they can watch one football game.
Right.
They like the Chiefs because we're close to Kansas City. So paying like $5 a month so they can watch the Chiefs one day a week. And like, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's I love it. I'm gonna have to try that out. I'm gonna definitely have to take a look at that. Carl, I don't know if you noticed how dry Matt's basement is down there or whatever, but we'll go on and move on from there. So my
why don't you ask if you go to Editions too, Taylor? Good gracious!
Are you going to Editions?
Who's talking to Matt?
Editions.dev, Matt? You going to Editions.dev?
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah, we get. Yeah, like it's just like an expense thing, right? Like we're gonna have like a family vacation, so we gotta pay for the family vacation. And
listen. So family vacation. I mean, Niagara Falls. It's like on the way to Toronto, man. So you know what?
Just drop them off there. And,
yeah.
See you guys a couple days. I'll be back.
Yeah, you know, like, so we're only in Ohio, like we're only 6 hours away. So that's what I did for Editions last year is we took the kids, we went to Niagara Falls, but we just drove it. You're obviously a bit farther in St. Louis, so you're flying, unless you I don't know, rock the the camper thing or something or whatever. You can maybe camp around or something out there. I'm not even gonna get into how into like researching campers right now. I am so
okay.
I'll transition my pick. And we'll cut this off. What?
The boat idea. Just get the boat, and we could all be in the harbor and our flotilla of Shopify boats. It's the perfect plan.
Can you drop like all the kids off at like Cedar Point and like take a boat from Cedar Point to?
That would be awesome.
No, they get a boat too.
Happy.
You just tow it behind you so they can't bother you, but you know they're there. It's perfect.
I like Matt's idea of leaving them at Cedar Point. So my pick of the week we record every 2 weeks, so I don't know my pick of the episode. I don't know what we call it, pick of the week or whatever. Sam's Club membership. That's so every dad with kids, every mom with kid, everybody who has kids, get a Sam's Club membership. Like it's cheap. It's one of the few places my kids don't gripe about having to go to or whatever. You know, you can find stuff that you need. You know, if you need to buy like 20 pounds of rice or something like that or whatever, you can do it. So like it's great. Love Sam's Club. And I mean, if you have to get a Costco membership, you can do that, I guess. But Sam's Club is better. I'm gonna tell you right now. It just is. So yeah,
we have
Sam's
Costco,
Club.
but I did work at Sam's Club when I was a kid. So
of course you did.
Of course you did. Yeah, like that's no man. I do not like.
We stick this up.
I love going to Sam's Club. I'm like, let's go to Sam's Club. Like it's fun. It's just
awesome.
It's nice. Yeah. So there you
My
go.
goodness gracious.
Well,
that was fun, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. It was really a great pleasure to meet you, hear about what you're doing, and super impressed by what you've pulled off with that limited amount of time you're able to invest in it. And when you want to talk Rails, come on over. We'll chat. And those of you that stuck around, we appreciate you. Thanks for listening, and good luck doing whatever it is you do in the Shoposphere. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.